to 13 Degrees of Screams.
We're your hosts, Stephanie.
And Alex.
This week, we try to find out who killed Mr. Boddy in Clue.
Clue is a 1985 American black comedy mystery film based on the board game of the same name. 6 guests are anonymously invited to a strange mansion for dinner, but after the host is killed, they must cooperate with the staff to identify the murderer as the bodies pile up. It has a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes with a critical consensus that states, a robust ensemble of game actors elevate Clue above its schematic source material, but this farce's reliance on novelty over organic wit makes its entertainment value a roll of the dice. And it has an 86% as an audience score.
That's more correct. This is comedy gold. I love it.
So let me ask you the question then. Stephanie... Have you seen Clue before you watched it for the podcast?
Yeah, only one other time. And I was surprised that this is never like a movie my parents showed me because, you know, it's early 80s, right? Yeah, or mid 80s. But it's definitely like the style that I feel like they would have watched, like Airplane and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, they had never seen it. And I watched this just by chance with Charlie a couple of years ago, and I really liked it.
Oh, for the first time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like Tim Curry in it. He's really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Clue. I've seen it a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I really like it. I will say, with each subsequent viewing, once we kind of go through in the end, like, who did what, it's like, okay. That part of the film is just like... It keeps going and going. Yeah. So, like, by the time you've seen it a couple times, when you get to that part, you're like, all right, here we go. We're at that part of the movie where it's just like, and you're just like, make it stop.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the only thing. But otherwise, I really love this movie. And a little fun fact, we put on this play while I was in high school.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Who did you play?
Oh, I was just in crew.
Oh, okay.
But our good friend, Kat, was Miss Peacock.
Oh, I could see it. Yeah.
You can see it. Did you know that we did that?
I do think that Charlie mentioned that you guys were in Clue. But yeah, that's all I knew about it.
Yeah, I was just on crew. But it was probably my favorite thing we ever did in high school theater. It was so fun. We had like... Obviously, we didn't do the whole mansion, but we had the basement, a middle level with 3 rooms, and then a top room. So we made it all work within those 5 rooms.
Okay.
But we did trap doors and everything. It was really fun.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
I liked it.
That is a larger budget than what we had, where we were like working on like a little cement stage. Like, just, this is the room. Just one room. Maybe we'll put up a wall.
Yeah, maybe.
Just one.
Just describe your school in the sticks as you always describe it.
Yes. My school was very hick. I got stuck driving behind a tractor on several occasions, going to school. One girl rode her horse to school at one point. Just is what it is. Wouldn't recommend.
Why not? What's wrong with the horse?
No, not the horse, just the school. Yeah, but, you know.
The horse is fine. The school, not so much.
It was because we had like a little bit more of a like country values and stuff as well. So like people brought like their 5-year older than them prom dates and stuff like that to dances. And then you're like, oh, that doesn't seem appropriate.
Hey, you know what? Whatever works, I guess. I don't know. I'm not going to pass judgment on your generic hometown in the sticks.
Yes, generic.
So you really like Clue then?
I do. I actually really just love murder mysteries. I know it's kind of like the lowest tier of horror or whatever, and some people...
It's not even considered horror.
I know it just kind of like falls in like a weird space and drama. Like some people really hate murder mysteries. I really like it. Like there's actually a new show called Perfect Couple on Netflix that's all murder mystery, and it's got... the guy from Midsommar, the bear guy, and the bear suit guy, and Dakota Fanning for some reason, and it's got
for some reason.
Well, I don't know. It's got like a real star-studded cast.
Okay. It made it seem like Dakota Fanning.
No, I actually really like her. I just haven't seen her in a lot of stuff, so it feels like she's making a resurgence. But Nicole Kidman is also in it as well. But yeah.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. It was very good.
It's funny because when I was watching this in my head, I was like, ooh, how can I do a murder mystery party? Because I really love the idea of like murder mysteries. And no one obviously knows this, but you have a painting of your wedding party. Like, it's my favorite thing ever. And it's like one of the people in the party is pretending to be dead, and we're all like around the body looking suspicious. Yes. And it is the coolest thing.
It was perfect. We thought of that so like perfect. Day of, but it was great. Yeah, I'll post it to the Instagrams and stuff. Yeah,
you guys gotta see it. It's so cool. But anyways, every time I see it, I'm like, we need to do a murder mystery party.
Yes.
But yeah, so Clue, I really enjoy Clue. It's definitely like a slapsticky type situation, I would say.
I think that's what makes them better, especially like, because I feel like sometimes murder mysteries can go in the whole, like, you don't like anybody. And then in this case, I felt like I liked Tim Curry. I liked Miss Scarlet. I liked certain people. Like, Mr. Green was fine and stuff like that. Other people, I'm like, no, definitely not you. But
okay.
But I feel
I'd be
like
curious to see who you don't like. But we can talk about it in the plot.
Yeah. So yeah, there's certain people you like and don't like. Obviously, you know, it walks a thin line because everyone has to be a suspect. But but still, I like it when it's comedy because it makes people more. I don't know. You relate to them a little bit more when you're laughing at them, I guess.
Yeah. Because a big thing when we talk about the plot, it's like blackmail, and all these people did like not so great things, but. Yeah, making it comedy, you're like, well, you know, how bad could it be?
It's not really awful. Just government secrets.
I will say, every time I watch this movie also, they talk a lot about, like, there's, like, not a ton going on per se, but a lot of, like, backstory about what they did and how this connects to who. It's, like, very confusing, honestly. I don't know if it's just because the story's confusing or they did a bad job at, like, kind of like laying that out for everyone, but I pick up more and more each time.
Yeah, I will say that writing the plot for this was a beast. It was just a lot. I was like, I could go bare bones and say, you know, they killed so-and-so with blah, 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 but then that doesn't tell you why. So then I had to go back and be like, okay, what was this person's specific motive? And then especially when they have the alternate endings too, you have to include all those extra details. Took a lot longer than I would have probably agreed to if I would have thought it through.
Yeah, it's funny because the movie itself isn't very long.
It's
and like especially with the
hour and a half.
Yeah, especially with the 3 different endings, and we could just talk about it now because I was going to mention it at the end. The 3 different endings. Initially, when they released them in theaters, you kind of just got a random ending. So it didn't.
I have that. Like it was just random.
Yeah. So if we were watching the movie with just one ending, it wouldn't be as bad. But then we have to like, but it could have did this or it could have done that. So there's actually a 4th ending intended too.
Yes, I have that as well.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
I came prepared. I have notes.
So before we jump in the plot, I just want to give a little bit of information on the original Clue board game. So the original game, it was first released in the UK in 1949, and it was originally titled Cluedo, which was a clever play on Ludo, which is known as Parcheesi or
Parcheesi
in other regions. It's confusing because there's another game called Parcheesi, which isn't Clue. So
yeah, odd.
It's spelled Parcheesi, so something like that. The name Clue was adopted for the American and Canadian versions and subsequently for the film. In the original game, 3 of the characters were Miss Scarlet, Reverend Green, and Dr. Black. In North America, they were renamed Miss Scarlet with only 1 T, because apparently that really matters. Mr. Green and Mr. Boddy, respectively, which Mr. Boddy is not a playable character. So
No, he just has to be the dead person, but I mean, he's got a name like Mr. Boddy, so.
Have you ever played Clue?
Yes.
Do you like it?
I do.
It's like, once you add more than 3 people, it is so hard.
Yeah, and like the spaces going between the rooms.
That's the worst
That's the longest part.
Because you only get 1 die.
Yeah.
You're like, if you keep rolling a 1, which is something I do, all day.
Yeah, you have to rely on those secret passages to tell you everything.
Seriously.
Okay, are you ready to get into the plot?
Yes.
In 1954, 6 strangers receive a mysterious invitation to a dinner party at a secluded New England mansion. As each guest arrives, they are introduced by the butler Wadsworth and maid Yvette with a pseudonym to maintain confidentiality. Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, Mrs. Peacock, Mr. Green, Professor Plum, and Miss Scarlet. During an awkward dinner, to say the least, of slurping soup and weird attempts at small talk for Mrs. Peacock, the guests learn that they hold government influence and are introduced to the final guest, Mr. Boddy. After dinner, they are all called into the study, where Wadsworth explains that he was instructed to send them here because they are all paying off an unknown blackmailer that threatens to expose them. Mr. Boddy attempts to leave, but soon realizes that Wadsworth has locked them all in. Wadsworth then shares the details of what they are each being blackmailed for. Professor Plum was formerly a professor of psychology who now works for the United Nations, but he's no longer allowed to practice medicine because his license was terminated after having sexual relations with female patients. So not great. I don't like him because of that.
It's funny because my favorite piece was always Professor Plum playing the game. So I'm like, dude, come on.
He's also the guy from Back to the Future, the doctor.
Christopher Lloyd.
I didn't remember his real name, but yes.
Dr.
Brown from Back to the Future.
Yes.
Mrs. Peacock takes bribes in exchange for giving her husband, a senator, vote to certain lobbyists. Miss Scarlet runs a brothel for high-paying government clients. Colonel Mustard is one of these clients and holds a sensitive security post in the Pentagon. He is also the man that plays him, is also the principal from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Kraft, I believe his name was.
Like the original Sabrina?
Yeah, with Melissa Joan Hart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't catch that.
I recognized him. I was like, I wanted to say Mr. Feeney, but I was like, no, Mr. Feeney's too wholesome and special. This guy I hate. And then I was like, oh, it's Sabrina.
This guy. All right, 2 people 70 hates. All right.
I mean, here we are. Actually, sadly, he just passed away this last June.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. Mrs. White's husband died under mysterious circumstances, and her first husband also disappeared. Mr. Green is gay and must pay off the blackmailer so he doesn't lose his job at the State Department.
It's so funny. All these people doing real bad stuff, and then Mr. Green is a homosexual.
Oh, yes. And it's Tim Curry saying it, so he's like a homosexual. Enunciate all of it.
I mean, granted, for the time, it makes sense, but it's just so funny.
Yes. Yeah. And they treat him like a pariah after they scoot away from him. I'm like, gosh.
I mean, for the time, I'll give it. It is what it is.
Yes. Finally, Mr. Boddy is the one that's been blackmailing them all. The other guests quickly start attacking him, but Wadsworth is able to break up the fight by saying the police are on the way, and if they tell the police their stories, Mr. Boddy will be imprisoned. Mr. Boddy disagrees and gives each of the guests a gift to unwrap. Miss Scarlet receives a candlestick, Mrs. White a rope tied in a noose, Mr. Green gets a pipe, Colonel Mustard a wrench, Professor Plum receives a handgun, and Mrs. Peacock gets a dagger or a small knife, whichever you prefer.
A small knife.
A small knife.
You better call it a small knife the rest of this plot.
Just a small knife.
A teeny knife.
A little guy.
A little baby knife.
Yes.
It's actually pretty big.
It's a decent sized knife. Like about the size of your hand.
I would call it a small sword.
Oh, okay.
And a small sword, big knife.
That sounds right. He explains that if he's arrested, he'll ensure that they are all exposed in court, but if they kill Wadsworth now to get the key to leave, they can all continue their original payments as if nothing ever happened.
Okay. Or I could just break a window maybe and escape. I don't know.
Actually, Mr. Boddy does try that, but they are surrounded by severe looking Doberman pinchers, I guess would be the word.
They were just in the they can't be everywhere. This is a giant mansion.
I guess that's true.
There's gotta be somewhere you could get out, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, I guess.
Am I crazy?
And it only seemed like they were chained up at the front door, but when he tries to run, he goes through a little greenhouse area. And but they're like, hey, get back in there.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't try very hard.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could escape somewhere.
Probably. He then turns off the lights and chaos momentarily ensues. We hear a gunshot, and when the lights come back on, Mr. Boddy is presumed dead on the floor.
Well, he's dead, so...
That took care of that.
That was not the intended target, but realistically, so if Mr. Boddy is the person blackmailing them, and he's dead, we leave?
Yeah, honestly, they could just be like, all right, get out of here. Skedaddle.
Like the problem solved, I feel.
Yeah. The guests at first throw around theories of what may have happened because even though a gun went off, there seems to be no bullet wound. But they are forced to rush to the billiards room when they hear screaming. There they find the maid, Yvette, hysterical because she was listening to their taped conversation and is now scared to be trapped with a killer in the house. They all return to the study. Wadsworth explains that he invited them all here so they could force a confession from Mr. Boddy and turn him over to the police. It turns out Wadsworth was also a victim of Mr. Boddy, as Wadsworth's wife was being blackmailed for being friends with Socialist, and the price was so high that they were forced to work for him for nothing, which eventually led his wife to take her own life.
That sucks.
Yeah, very extreme.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
If I were Wadsworth, like I myself would kill Mr. Boddy. Like, I wouldn't be able to hold that in, I don't think. Like, as soon as he walked in, I would have strangled him. And it'd be over. Like, there'd be no movie.
Right.
Like, sorry I invited you here. Kind of just took care of it. You guys can go home now.
Yeah. Like, it was really on me that I should have thought it through, that I would just kill the man instead of hosting a huge dinner party with several strangers. But, I thought maybe I'd have a little more self-control.
Lapse of judgment. It happens to the best of us.
Right. Now, even though the situation of their being there has been explained, Wadsworth points out that they will have to find out who killed Mr. Boddy quickly, as the police will be there in 40 minutes. It's funny that the game's not timed, because they keep on mentioning, like, the police will be here in, like, 39 minutes, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
20 minutes.
I don't... Could you imagine trying to play Clue, but timed? That'd be impossible.
You'd never get anywhere.
No, especially, again, with, like, if you play with all 6 people, you're there all night. Mm-hmm. At least, I don't know, maybe I'm playing it wrong, but it usually
you'd have
takes
to play with
time.
a D20 the whole time, just to make your moves a little bit more substantial.
Yeah, for real.
There you go. That's how you edit it.
We should play Clue, but with a D20.
Yeah, I think you get a lot more accomplished that way. Suddenly, they realize the only person that they haven't seen since the murder is the cook, and they all take off for the kitchen. At first, it appears empty, but then the cook's body falls out of the freezer with a knife sticking out of her back.
With a small sword sticking out of her back.
Small knife.
No, big knife, small sword.
Big knife, small sword. The group accuses Mrs. White at first, as she is the only one with a disappearance tied to her, but then they realize that the knife was Mrs. Peacock's, but she claims that she set it down sometime after Mr. Boddy died. When they return to the study with the cook's body, they find that Mr. Boddy's corpse has disappeared. Professor Plum admits now that he thought he was dead, but now it appears he's still alive somewhere.
Bitch, come on. Mm-hmm. What do you mean you thought he was dead?
I thought so.
I thought he wasn't breathing or moving or anything of the sort. Right. But he definitely was.
Mrs. Peacock excuses herself to the ladies' room, and when she opens the door, his body falls out on her with new head wounds. Wadsworth proposes to lock up all the weapons from now on so the killer won't be able to access them, but before he can throw away the key, a stranded motorist arrives asking to use the phone to call for help. The group momentarily discuss if he can come in, then agree to allow him to use the phone in the lounge and lock him in so he won't see the bodies. Wadsworth then throws the key outside the front door, and the group decide to split up into pairs to search the manor.
What are we doing? So we're going to just take some random guy in, lock him in. Okay, he's locked in. Yeah. Give him that. And then we're just going to, like, go about our business. Like, eventually
he's not going to ask any questions about that. Yeah.
He's like, hey, why am I locked in?
And even when he sees all of them, like, when they answer the door, he's like, I didn't mean to interrupt the whole household, because it's, like, 9 people standing behind Wadsworth, like...
Well, yeah, obviously we were doing something, sir. Like... I would have been like, no, sorry, you gotta go home.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on your own, buddy.
It's just not time for this.
It's not. You'll have a bad time if you show up here. Mm-hmm. Put it that way.
You don't want to ring this doorbell. While the pair search, we see a pair of gloved hands burning the blackmail evidence, unlocking the cupboard of weapons, and killing the motorist with a wrench. In their search, Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet find a secret passageway that leads them back to the lounge, where they are now locked in with the dead motorist. When they yell for help, Yvette takes the revolver from the open cupboard and shoots the door open, wounding Colonel Mustard and causing a chandelier to nearly fall on him as he comes out of the room.
You got lucky.
Yeah. I found Yvette the most suspicious in this situation because I was like, how did you know that the cupboard was
Yeah, because she
available.
ran. Well, she says, like, maybe it was just open. What did she say? Or she thought she was going to break it open or something?
Yeah, I was like, okay.
This thing, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that, but all right.
The group deduces that Wadsworth must have thrown out the wrong key, and the murderer pickpocketed the cupboard key from him. Meanwhile, outside, a cop pulls up to investigate the stranded motorist vehicle and soon comes to the house to request to use the phone. They allow him to use the phone in the library as the group thinks of what to do, but the officer notifies them that FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover is on the phone, so Wadsworth steps into the library to take the call alone.
So many people showing up here.
And I will say part of the comedy, too, is just watching this whole herd of people just, like, scurry together into one room or in another. Or then whenever anyone answers the door, they're just all like...
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, yeah, we're reading the plot to you, but you really need to watch it. And there's, like... It's all action, really. And...
a lot of physical comedy.
Yeah, and all the characters have their own like mannerisms that you like pick up on, and they like even the way they stand, and like Miss Scarlet's always like not trying to be seductive per se, but she always has like a stance, and then Miss White always just looks like she's gonna murder someone at any given second. She just has this deadpan face. So all that to say is like you really need to like watch this happen, because it, you know, we could read the plot and it sounds meandering, but it's like they're all over the place.
Yes, and some of the lines, like the one-liners, are really great. Like at one point they ask, like, is everything okay? And Colonel Mustard says, 2 bodies, yep, we're good. Like, like just normal.
Later in the plot, I just want to talk about it now before I forget, but there's like the part where they're trying to count the number of shots in a gun. They're like 1 shot, 2 shots, and they're like going back and forth.
1 plus 3 is 2.
Yeah, 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2. No, it's 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus... It's like stuff like that.
Yes.
And a lot of wordplay. It's funny.
And also, just one more thing too. Wadsworth wants them to move the bodies all into one room to keep the kitchen clean.
Yeah. And at some point, they're just so unfazed by the bodies that are piling up. They're just like, oh, they're just like shuffling around. They have no reaction to someone dying. It's great.
Mr. Green offers to take the cop on a tour of the house while the group works to conceal the bodies by making them look like they are all having a makeout party in the dark.
That's one of my favorite parts.
Yes. Very strategic, like placing Mr. Boddy's body on the couch, and like Mrs. White is like hovering over him, and it looks like they're making out on the couch. It's very strategic in the way it looks.
They got that coordinated in like 2 seconds. I'm like, good for them. They are good. They're a good team, honestly, to be able to pull that off. Right.
I love when they cut to like what their faces look like on the other side, and they're just like...
I love the one. It's Colonel Mustard and Miss Peacock, and they have the cook's body
in between them to make it look like they're making out in the curtains.
Yeah, and then Miss Peacock's on the other side of the woman's body, like moving her arms. She's just like,
yeah,
so funny.
The police officer concludes that nothing illegal is happening in the house and asks to use the phone now, so they take him back to the library to do so and lock him in so the guests can continue searching the house. Just lock up everybody we see.
Yeah, at this point, that's the game plan. It seems to have been working up until this point. So let's.
It didn't work for the motorist.
Well, he died, so it doesn't matter. So he was gonna die,
I guess. However, panic ensues when the power is cut, and Yvette, the cop, and singing telegram girl are murdered with the rope, pipe, and revolver, respectively.
I am your singing telegram. Boom. And then before Yvette dies, this was always weird to me. She like comes up to whoever kills her, and I don't know if you know, she loses her accent.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, she's not actually like French. It's all a ploy. But then she says something about like she knows, or she thinks she knows who it is, and then she screams, "It's you!" So she seems very, very suspicious in that moment. Yeah,
because like she comes into this dark room, and the person is like, "Did you do what you were supposed to?" or something. So it makes it seem like they're working together. And then all of a sudden, like they reach out of the dark and like strangle her with the noose, and she was like, "It was you!" Like,
yeah. Who did you think it was? Like,
or maybe she was surprised that like they were the one going around killing people. I don't know, but it feels like Yvette was asked to kill or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, at the end of the movie, it makes sense like why Yvette knows things are happening. But like, I'm just curious who she thought she was looking at.
Yeah, true.
like the whole, like, you know, being in on it makes sense at the end. But I'm like, who were you thinking you were?
Yeah.
But in any case, she dies. So she did. Bye.
Wadsworth gets the power back on. The group reunite to take in the scene, obviously shell-shocked by the night's events. So they're going from, like, room to room, and now there's, like, 3 new bodies, and they're just, like, blank stares, just looking, like, no reaction. Like, okay. Yeah, that seems right. Like,
yeah.
And Wadsworth tells them he's figured out what happened. He begins to recreate the night, running the guests ragged all over the house from start to finish and repeating most of their lines verbatim, down to who slurped their soup at dinner.
I will never forget. It was Miss White and Plum, wasn't it? Because they just,
yeah, it's like tension, very silent, and like.
Also, that sound makes you want to jump off a bridge.
Yeah, I hate it. There's a momentary interruption from an evangelist, but he eventually explains how the other 5 victims were Boddy's informants, who are each connected to one of the guests, and there were no coincidental interruptions as everyone that entered the house was involved in some way. So everyone that came there was, you know, no accident. They were all actually asked to be there. I don't know why the motorist had to, you know, have his car break down, but...
You know, it's just a victim of circumstance, right?
Right. We learned that Yvette was Mrs. White's husband's affair partner, worked for Miss Scarlett at her gentleman's club, and was documented servicing Colonel Mustard. The cook previously worked for Mrs. Peacock, and the motorist was Colonel Mustard's driver during the war, and knew that he was a war profiteer. The police officer was bribed by Miss Scarlett to overlook her business dealings, and the singing telegram girl was Professor Plum's former patient, who he had an affair with, so it appears that anyone could have taken advantage of the situation in some way to tie up loose ends, which leads to one of 3 possible outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so...
This is where we get, like, at this point in the movie, you're, like, a little exhausted.
It's a little tired, because you're watching them, like, run it through, like... And then we went to this room, and you came in, and you said this, and then, but who wasn't all standing here? Like, and then they're like, then we ran to the kitchen, like.
Yeah, because it's like, at least for me, I'm like trying to recall the movie. I'm like, is this what happened? Like, you know, trying to like piece together, but they go so blazing fast that it's like so exhausting.
Yeah, they could tell. Done. I don't know. They could tell us that they were watching Sesame Street during part of this, and I would be like, I mean, yeah, okay. Possibly. Like, they're going really quickly. That you're just like, are they telling the truth? Because technically all of them are suspect. So even if Wadsworth is like leading the charge in this one, you're not sure if he's telling the truth.
Right. Yeah. It's blazing fast.
We cut to title cards that play out all these possibilities. And the first one is how it could have happened. And in this one, Yvette killed both the cook and Boddy on Scarlett's orders, but Scarlett then eliminated Yvette and the other victims, planning to profit from the guest secrets, basically becoming Mr. Boddy 2.0, it sounds like. Yeah,
she was just going to do what he was doing.
Right.
She's like, I don't have an original idea. This is fine.
I mean, this was a good idea that Mr. Boddy had. I just need to, like, get rid of him, and then I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Scarlett aims her revolver at Wadsworth, who insists that the gun is empty. This is the whole, like, 1 + 2 = how many shots and stuff.
Yeah.
And just as the police arrive at the manor, Wadsworth disarms her, and it turns out that the evangelist is actually the chief of police. Wadsworth also discloses that he is an undercover FBI agent, but in a twist of fate, he accidentally fires the last bullet at a chandelier, which just barely misses Colonel Mustard as it crashes down.
Another chandelier in the same room.
Yes, apparently there's like 6 chandeliers in this one room.
There's a never-ending supply. Every time you look up, there's a new one.
And then there's another one, another title card, and it says, how about this? Peacock committed the murders to hide her involvement in accepting bribes from foreign entities and then held the others at gunpoint in a bid to flee. They also, like, are trying to pander to her. So they're like, yes, thank you for what you've done. And then they sing for She's a Jolly Good Fellow as she walks out the door. It's very odd, but I like it.
As soon as she shuts the door, they're like, it's just like the best part.
Yes. To their astonished relief, Wadsworth discloses that he is an undercover FBI agent, yet again. Peacock is apprehended outside just before the police swarm the manor, revealing that the supposed evangelist is actually the chief of police. Again. And here's what really happened, title card flashes. With the exception of Green, each guest committed a murder. Peacock killed the cook, Plum took down Boddy, Mustard eliminated the motorist, Scarlet murdered the cop, White killed a vet, and Wadsworth ended the singing telegram's life.
Before we go any further, the best line in the entire movie, Miss White talking about Yvette. Heaving flames on the side of my face. Breath, breathing.
Yes, I did it. I killed Yvette. I hated her so much. Flames on the side of my face. Breathing, heaving breaths.
That was improv too.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is the absolute best part of the entire movie, and I will not take any other considerations.
No, that's fair. Mrs. White has some really good, really out there lines. Like when they're accusing her after the cook dies, she says something about, they ask her something about like how many husbands she's had. She's like, other friends' husbands or my husbands? And they're like, your husbands? Like 5? Like husbands are disposable like Kleenexes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you right.
Yeah, I guess.
So I just wanted to point that out because like that is my absolute favorite part of the movie, and I look forward to it every single time.
Yes. Flames from the side of my head.
I hated her so much. It's so funny.
Yes. Wadsworth, holding the guest at gunpoint, reveals that he is actually the real Boddy, and that Plum killed the genuine butler. So, like, Mr. Boddy was actually the butler, and Wadsworth was Mr. Boddy, essentially.
Which makes no sense, really. Like, why is Mr. Boddy playing along?
Yeah.
Like, that don't make no sense. What are you talking about?
It's strange.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Why would he kill his butler? Like,
because he knew. He was an accomplice for him still.
Oh, okay.
So he still knew too much.
Okay. Yeah, but then why would he play along, too?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Unless the only thing I can think of is real Boddy. So Tim Curry's character, the real Boddy, told the fake Boddy butler to play along and then didn't expect to die.
Oh, okay.
Like,
and then maybe he was just like running them all ragged so he could kill them off one by one or something.
Something like that. I don't know.
He declares his intention to continue blackmailing them until Green pulls out his own revolver and shoots him. Green then discloses that he is an undercover FBI agent investigating Boddy before allowing law enforcement and the evangelist, who turns out to be the chief of police again, to enter and arrest everyone.
And then he's like, I'm going home to sleep with my wife. I'm like, damn it. Come on.
Yes.
He's not actually gay. That's the big
I know. Gosh.
Like that it's funny then because like that was the fake plan. But also like if you also think about it, so Boddy was still actually blackmailing Mr. Green
for being gay, but
because I was thinking like he just made that up to get in on the invite, but like no, he would have actually had to been getting blackmailed too.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay,
maybe he had like a little scandalous 6 months where he was pretending otherwise, but
right, he would have had to like play into that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was just like, wait, because initially I was like, did you just make it up to get in the party? But that doesn't make sense because then Mr. Boddy would be like, who the hell are you?
Right? Yeah, so, he would know.
This is confusing.
And then there's also a fourth ending that was ultimately removed from the film because director Lin did not approve of it. However, some scenes from this ending are included in the movie storybook. In this version, Wadsworth is revealed as the sole killer, justifying his actions by claiming a need for perfection in the world and stating that life's inconsistencies were intolerable.
Okay.
He informs the 6 victims that he has poisoned the champagne he served them, and unless they find an antidote within 3 hours, they will perish.
Eek!
Yeah. The police arrive soon after and manage to corner Wadsworth, but he escapes from the chief and locks the others inside the mansion. While attempting to steal a police car, he catches a whiff of a familiar smell, the scent of dog droppings from earlier in the film, and realizes that the Doberman from before is now in the vehicle lunging at him.
Oh, shit. That would suck.
Yes. The ensuing chaos causes the police car to crash, resulting in Wadsworth's death. This suggests that the others managed to escape safely as the Doberman was no longer guarding the windows. Yeah, so they do include this weird scene where Wadsworth pulls up to the manor by himself before anyone arrives, and he kind of like tosses like a steak or something at these dogs that are chained up outside. And then as soon as he goes into the house, like he kind of like smells something, then carries on with his business. But then everyone that walks in after him is also like, oh, that's a nasty smell, and like checking their shoes. But then it never comes to anything because apparently this was the ending that was removed.
Yeah. Which in the context of the movie, it could have just been a gag that everyone is smelling it. So you don't think anything of it. At least I didn't.
Yeah,
but
I kind of thought so too.
That's a good callback, but again, when you're seeing this movie in theaters, when it first run, you get like one of the endings, so either way, it would have never come to anything, at least for 3 of the endings.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's all I got on this.
You did a good job kind of slimming it down, because we could have gotten to the nitty-gritty of everything and how they all... I want to do a chart of how they're all connected to each other.
You should. If you do that, that would be fun.
Oh, God, I don't know if I could. Most of them live in Washington, and then these people are involved in government stuff, and these people have husbands who do government stuff, and then this one has a husband who's cheating on them with this person who employs this person, and then this person was caught with that same person who was cheating on her with... It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
You would have like a huge poster board with like all those strings. Like everyone just has like 700 strings coming out of their pictures.
That's kind of what it's like. But at the end of the day, like even when I saw this when I was younger, shocking. It matters, but not much to the point where like if you miss something, you're like, okay, it's fine. You're here for the comedy, the murders.
Yeah.
Just know they did bad things, you know?
Yeah, I will say, though, that out of murder mysteries I've seen, like, I know this is technically, like, one of the originals, but the explanation is, like, the most muddied because of all the alternate endings and stuff like that, too. So it can kind of feel confusing. I remember when I first watched it, I was like, so which one really happened? Because I didn't even catch the whole, here's what really happened title card, because it was all happening so quickly. And then, you know, everyone's re-explaining everything over and over again. Yeah,
and that's the thing with this movie is they have to make it generic enough where they can do these alternate endings, where... In this ending, the person was gone, but in the other ending, it was actually this person who was gone. So I actually went back during the part where they were talking about there was someone missing in the kitchen, and I went back to that part, and I saw everyone there at one point. So I was like, well, I don't know. And then there was one part where they were all looking into the room, and someone was missing, and it was Miss Scarlet. I finally figured it out. She comes running in towards the end. So that was like an instance where I actually caught someone wasn't like in the frame.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, it's like they had to like make it vague enough to where they can fit where someone may have been. Yeah. So there's never like a really good concrete explanation.
This is why everyone was murdered, but no, it's really just like everyone was responsible in some way.
You're like, okay, sure. And at the end of the day, you know, it's a comedy, slapstick comedy, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't want to like give it a pass, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, well, that's not really the entire point. It's less of the mystery and more of the killing and silliness of it all.
Yes, I think so. Would you like to go into ratings?
I would.
Okay. What did you think of this initially? Like, what were you expecting? I know we both have experience with this.
Yeah, I knew it. I put it as a 1. Like, this is fine. It's not even... Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not even really a horror movie in any way, shape, or form. So it is definitely a 1. Outside of, again, a kid wouldn't catch like all the intricacies of the relationships, but it's fine. Like, it's not scary. There's literally nothing scary about this movie. Right. So it's definitely a 1.
Yeah, same. There's nothing to be scared of, honestly. I mean, the only reason it somehow fits in our slots is because there is murder. But
for sure. It's like it's a murder mystery, so like, you know, it's adjacent. I feel like, you know, horror, we talked about this before, how broad horror can be. And like murder mystery, again, it's not presented in a horror fashion, but it is topic that could be horror. So we gave it a pass and we covered Clue. But it's a 1. It's definitely a 1.
Yeah.
There's really not much more.
Mm-hmm. So I also saw it beforehand, so I gave it a 1, and I would keep it at a 1.
I don't know. Actually, on the 10th viewing for me,
I was like, 10, Wadsworth is scary. He's kind of scary. Yeah. Was he the clown in it? Ooh, I don't like that background.
There's a mean dog who's kind of scary.
Yeah.
There's poop on his shoe. That's pretty scary. I would not want that to happen to me.
No, definitely not.
There's a big knife, short sword. That's scary.
Yeah, terrifying.
Candlestick.
Some of them got gypped with those weapons, though, I feel like.
I know. He's like, you all have received a weapon. I'm like, a candlestick?
Apparently, though, because Scarlet was the one, I guess, that bludgeoned him with it when his body falls out of the bathroom. So yeah, I guess it was heavy enough, but
I mean, it could be, but it's like one of those things. I would have thought of anything else before that.
Yeah, right.
Like a big pair of scissors or shears. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's like everyone gets a knife, a gun, some rope, and you get a teddy bear. Do what you want with that.
Yeah, you get a dog toy that squeaks. Okay, cool. That would be me. That would be my weapon to defend myself with.
Right.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show and listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, giving us a 5-star rating is super helpful, and we always appreciate it. But also, we're on YouTube now, so if you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and you'll get more video podcasts like the one you're watching potentially right now.
Yeah. Feel free to like and comment on those videos to let us know what you'd like us to watch next, and follow us on social media using 13 Degrees of Screams.
This has been 13 Degrees of Screams, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.